So welcome back to coach certification training. We are now in day one. Congratulations. You made it to day one. Now, besides that, if you're just joining us and you have no clue what's going on, I'm running live streams to help add some detail to a training that a bunch of students at Master Coach University are going through right now called Coach Certification Training. It's an advanced certification that we run once a year, max, where we cover 3 advanced coaching disciplines and actually learn by actually watching it happen, understanding the theory first, and then finally actually practicing this stuff as well. So today we are going to talk about everything regarding your lack of coaching confidence. So you might have actually heard this message earlier, and that might have been actually one of the conversations we had before you enrolled. But a big part of one of the reasons why a coach or someone who's new to coaching will first search for a certificate, first search to get certified as a coach, is because of confidence, because they're looking for a certain amount of confidence in their coaching ability or that they can actually coach somebody. Because one of the big questions a lot of times floating around in a new coach's mind or somebody who's hoping to start coaching is, who am I to coach somebody? How am I supposed to tell somebody else what to do with their life or their business? How can I really transform somebody else? Do I really have the skills for that? Do I have the knowledge for that? Do I have the status for that? Like, who the heck is going to listen to me? It's a valid question to some extent, and it's one that actually puts a lot of coaches off in terms of just starting their business or starting coaching for that matter. So as I check the chat, make sure I'm in the right place here. Hit me up in the chat so I know that you're there also, by the way, as we populate today. But it's a valid question. It is something that a lot of times a new coach will answer through getting certified, through gaining knowledge, through actually getting trained. And it brings me back to the first time I ever got certified as a coach. I went through here. I'll show you here because I actually made a frame for us on this one. Might as well use it. There you go. I went through 30 days of hell. So not really totally hell, but I mean, it was tough. I went through a 30-day training with Tony Robbins as one of his new coaches, or one of his new kind of wannabe coaches at the time. And I still remember a lot of vivid moments from that process because they weren't just training us, they were also auditioning us to work for the Robbins organization as coaches. And so we were there from all around the world, or at least all around the country. There were some from Europe and other parts of the world as well, mostly the North America region. And we just kind of found each other and found this training and found the opportunity to go to work there. This was literally, this is 1999. It's 1999, I think. The end of 1999. And hey, Josie, good to see you. Thanks for chatting me up at this late time for at least for me. Not so much for you, I don't think. But anyway, aloha. So anyway, we came from all over, and we were just sitting there wondering, what the heck are we doing here? Like, what's going to happen? Are we going to get a job coaching? Are we going to learn something? Are we going to get better at this? Is it possible for us to do this for a living? By the way, this was a time when coaching was not a well-known profession. I mean, 20 years ago, I mean, I'm not saying the profession didn't exist. It existed. The word coaching was something that some people knew, but it wasn't a household name the way it is nowadays. I mean, you can watch national television now, watch one of these kind of competition shows, and half the time the people that are kind of mentoring and helping the people that are trying to win, they're just called coaches, right? So this is a kind of a term of art now. It's not something that is unknown to the world anymore. So yeah, I don't know why you don't see that on YouTube, Josie. Should be there on a live stream, but neither here nor there. Anyway, so it wasn't common at the time. So we were really like some of the first coaches, out of the to hatch ourselves, and we were wondering if this thing was for real at all. And so I remember going through day after day, they took us through every aspect of what, Tony Robbins technology was, all his different seminars, the content. His master trainer was there to train us. His top affiliates came from around the country to train us on his business training content. And we just went through again and again and again all these different kind of contexts that he teaches in, in his life and in his body of work. And then we were coached on coaching, and we had to like learn these processes. And then we got up in front of the room, in front of everybody, and had to like show people what we had, and we got feedback, and we kept revolving and revolving and revolving. And we were trying to get the mindset of it. We were trying to get the techniques of it, and then we were trying to get the knowledge around it as well. And we didn't have the benefit of watching coaching happen. We were watching us stumble over ourselves to try to figure out what the heck we were doing. That was really what it looked like. And I remember one day we had gone through an entire day of training around like salesmanship and entrepreneurship and things like that. And then at the end of the day, the master trainer came back. His name's Joseph McClendon. You can still look him up today. He's still, runs Tony's seminars in a big way. He's kind of the second in command in Tony's organizations. And Joseph said, you know what? Your day's not over. It's actually just begun. Now here it's like 10:45 at night. It's almost 11 o'clock. And we're like, what the heck are you talking about, right? We've been through like a 12, 13-hour day. How is it that our day has just begun? And he said, you've just been acting out like your ability to help people. You haven't actually proven yourself yet. You haven't actually walked your talk. You just learned some information, and that's nothing. You put somebody who's like a black belt in karate, you put them out on the street in a street fight, they get pummeled because they've just spent all their time in the dojo. They've spent all their time in knowledge and all these forms and everything, and they haven't really gotten in a real fight. And you're about to get into a real fight. And we're like, what the heck does that mean, right? And he said, we're going to send you out into the world. Your job is to find people to help. Find people to make a difference for, and then get yourself back here by morning. And we're like, what are you going to like drop us in the middle of nowhere? And he wasn't specific about it, but then they passed out these little packages that had like a little Ziploc bag of almonds in it, and then like a emergency number to call, and like some quarters, and like a whistle, like just weird, right? Just like looking like a survival package, right? Like this tiny little package. And they said, okay, everything, like your wallet, give us all your identification items, give us all your money, give us everything that's in your pocket. Ladies, give us your purses. And so everybody's like giving up everything that we keep for ourselves to like stay alive and, kind of show people who we are. And all we got in exchange for it was like an emergency number, 50 cents of quarters, and a bag of almonds, right? And like a whistle. And so now we're getting scared. Now we're like, what the heck are they going to do to us? And they passed out these bandanas. And so we got these bandanas, and like, okay, here's what you're going to do with these bandanas. You're going to wrap them around so they kind of end up like a blindfold, and you're tying them around your eyes so you can't really see, right? And so now we're all sitting in class, right? We're at Tony's office in his training room, sitting in class, blindfolded with a bag of almonds, scared to hell. And now it's like 11:30 at night. They've been pushing us through all these different like affirmations and all this stuff, like getting really kind of almost like hostile. And they're like, okay, it's time to get down to the buses. And we're like, oh my gosh, where are we going? And so we march, and we're all holding onto each other because we're kind of blind at that point. And they lined us up, and they had us go down the stairs, or I can't even remember how we got downstairs, but probably elevators or something. And we're murmuring to each other, but they're just like, shut up, don't say anything, be quiet. And they pushed us onto these buses. And of course, we couldn't really see. And they start yelling at us and saying, okay, you're going to go out there. We're going to drop you off in different groups. And you're just going to have to find your way back. You're going to be miles from where you are now. And you're just going to have to change people's lives for the better. And then in exchange, those people that you helped are going to want to help you. And because of that, you're going to somehow get back here. And then you'll have passed our test. And so they're taking us and they're stopping. They're like, I guess they're dropping people off. And this happens for like an hour and we're going and going and going. And I'm like, okay, we're getting like 10, 20 miles from home, right? Like, I don't even know if we are going to figure out where we are. And we're not like in a city. There's not a lot of lights around. It's getting kind of dark. And so I'm sitting there, biting my fingernails thinking, what am I going to like find a gas station and like beg somebody like to, hitchhike or something? And eventually they dropped us off actually all together. All night long, we went through military ropes courses, which were just physically exhausting tasks. And, the whole time we're frightened, like they're gonna like push us out in the middle of nowhere at some point. And anyway, so it's now getting light outside. We've been all night, like cold, hypothermic. It's been kind of light misting and raining all night up in the San Diego mountains. And we're totally physically exhausted because we've been doing these like military style Army or Marine ropes courses all night, like flexing our muscles the whole time. And there's like people of all ages, women and men together, etc., pushing ourselves physically through these tasks. And not everybody was completely equal physically, right? We're coaches, not Marines. And so anyway, it's getting light out and we're walking back to these buses. And they're like, okay, now we're going to take you out to these different places and you're going to do these contribution efforts. And they started ranting and raving at us again. And I just remember this moment where I was looking down at the ground. I remember the gravel because it was out in kind of this ropes course, like just like mountain biking, mountain range, right? And you could barely see still because it's just getting light. But I remember the gravel. I'm just looking down because I'm so tired and we're just walking, exhausted. And I remember just saying, you know what? Screw it. I spent all night being afraid of what they're going to do to us and what we're going to have to face on this journey that we're going on together. And, whether I'm confident enough to like do what they're asking me to do. And I just finally said, you know what? Forget it. I don't even care what they do to me at this point. I'm too tired. I'm too exhausted. Whatever they do, I'm not scared anymore. I'm just gonna go through it. I'm just gonna do it. It can't be any worse than the experience I'm having right now. I'd been up for almost 24 hours at that point, probably about 24 hours, right? And so we got on the bus and they start talking about how we're gonna go on all these other things, and throughout the day, we're gonna be working and doing all this crazy stuff. And we start kind of going on the bus and we're all kind of like sleeping at that point. And then we arrived back at their offices and they're like, we're going to go to this office and then we're going to take you other places. And we got back to the office. They stopped the engine on the bus. We're just sitting there. And the master trainer stood up, kind of the bus, there's the bus seats. And they say, it's over. And everybody freaks out. We're all applauding and we're, like throwing up. And, it was the humanity of it was quite amazing. But, we felt like we had accomplished something, right? And we went through many more days of training at that point, but that was kind of the most challenging day for many of us. And other people were asked to leave throughout the training. I mean, we started with 50 of us and we ended up with about 20 or so. And I remember at the end of the training, they announced to us, you know what, if you're still standing here in this room and we haven't already talked to you and told you that you're not going to be a part of the team, you've made it. You're certified. You're part of the team. You can work for us as a coach. And again, we all celebrated. And I remember in that moment thinking, wow, I really have made it. I've proven myself. I know I'm a coach. I know I could be confident. I know that, hey, if I was chosen by this master coach and this guru, I must have something in me that allows me to make a difference for people. And we went home from the training that night, and we're all going to go celebrate. And so, me and some of the fellow students, we said, let's get dressed up. We're going to go out in the town. We got the night off, right? Because we were kind of done. We're going to go out in the town, and we're just going to paint the town and enjoy ourselves. And we went out to dinner, and then we went out dancing. And I remember walking around that night like I was floating, but I entered into every place we went to, whether it was like a bar or a restaurant or whatever. I I walked around like I owned San Diego. I walked around like I owned the place. I acted like I owned the place. I was dancing around like I owned the place. I mean, I just thought that I was, the S at that point, right? And I was not naturally a confident person, right, in my life. I mean, I was committed, I had some intensity to me, but at the end of the day, yeah, it was like a boot camp, Josie. At the end of the day, I was kind of a soft-spoken, very easygoing, not, I wasn't always at the leader of the pack, in my young life. But, for one of the first times in my life, like I felt like I was in charge of everything. I felt like I could like command my world. Now, I can't say exactly why, but I really felt like what I had done meant something. And it was kind of like in this 30 days of hell, as it says here, first 10 days, I was barely off the ground in confidence. 20 days in, I'm a little bit more confident, like maybe I can do this. And then, day 30 or wherever it was in that time where they told us, you're in, I went from like, 30% confidence to 100% confidence instantly. Now, let me ask you something. Did my skill set change from the moment before they said that I was in and the moment after? Did my abilities change? Did my knowledge change? Yes or no? Did I physically change in some way? Did anything really, really change from, 10 seconds before to 10 seconds after? Because this was literally, that's why this is vertical, because it literally happened within a minute, right? Did anything that really should be the basis of confidence change? Of course not. Nothing had changed. Nothing really had changed, right? But my ego exploded. My confidence went up. And I suddenly believed in myself. That's really what changed, if you want to really think about it that way. But I had more work to do. Because the reality was, I had years after that, after I went to work for Tony, I had hundreds of clients. I started this business that is really where we're talking now, JTS Advisors and Master Coach University. For years, I had ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs, not just in terms of coaching and getting my business going and helping people. I had those too, there's no doubt. But in terms of confidence, for years. Why? After that moment of clarity or that moment of genius, that moment where my ego exploded and I was just the cat's meow for like a night or a couple days. I had some residual confidence from that, no doubt. But why? Why did I keep going up and down and up and down in confidence for years? And the simple answer was because I counted on Tony Robbins and his master trainers and his organization to give me the confidence. That's what you might call charity confidence, right? I wasn't getting it myself. I wasn't confident myself. I was creating it, right? But I was depending on someone else to tell me that I was amazing. Somebody else to tell me that I had permission to coach. Somebody else to tell me that I was certified. Somebody else to tell me that I had the skills. So I didn't really have confidence. I did. I felt confident. But can you feel confident and not really be confident? Is that possible? You see people every day like that. They act really confident. They feel really confident. Or maybe they don't feel confident, but they just act confident because they think that's what they have to do. Ever seen somebody like that who's really totally inauthentic? They're full of it. But they act a good act. So if somebody feels confident, but they really don't maintain that, chances are they got their confidence from external sources. Somebody told them they were great. Somebody acknowledged them. Somebody certified them. They graduated, high school, college, got some degree. Somebody patted on the back. Somebody put stars on their chart. They got some accolade. This is all they got. They didn't really have confidence. By the way, they might have had to go through a lot in order to get that charity confidence. They might have had to learn some skills, got some knowledge, passed some tests, done real good work. Not always, but sometimes that could totally happen. Some people BS you and just say that you're great just, because they're manipulating you in some way, or they just like saying stuff, right? I have friends like that. They're really nice people. They say great things, but how much of that is really based in reality? A lot of it probably not so much. So they're passing out charity confidence, so to speak. I was depending on the certificate, right? I was depending on somebody else patting me on the back. And that's what a lot of coaches do. A lot of coaches are really just looking for charity confidence. They are a part of a community of people that can convince them that they can be confident, that can declare them certified, that can give them some level, right? They're dependent on others. The whole community of people like that inside of the community of the greater world of coaches. Some coaches are naturally confident. That's great. Some coaches get confident over time for legitimate reasons, okay? I don't want to talk down about getting certified or getting trained or anything like that. I mean, heck, this is literally certification training. But I needed to bring this up first with you on day one, so we just get it right out of the way, and so there's no BS about it, because there's something that's present when we talk about certification, especially in the coaching world, that just has to be said. It has to be dealt with, and if it's not, then it just ends up being this kind of weird cloud that hangs over the conversation, and I'm just not up for that. And I don't think you should be up for that either, even if that's what you were thinking about or hoping for on this journey, because this is way more than just getting some certificate. As I know, there's a good chance you may already figure that out. But if you haven't figured it out yet, that is absolutely part of this, is that there's more than just me giving you buying the trophy, so to speak. So coaches look for this external charity confidence. And what is confidence normally for a coach? Well, I shared a couple things here. Obviously, a certificate is big for a lot of coaches. You might even be here because you figured, once I get this certificate from Master Coach University, then I'll have the confidence that I need, right? Might be part of it. That might be to you, that might be confidence, right? For other coaches, knowledge, right? If I read enough books, if I take enough trainings, and they kind of go through the training hamster wheel again and again and again, learning the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. By the way, I padded my brain with knowledge for decades. I mean, I still do to some extent, okay? When in the first 5 years that I was running my coaching business, I didn't have a TV. I had like a computer, and I had some audio devices, things like that, but I didn't have a TV, right? And so all I did during my downtime was like run audios and read books and kind of try to fill my brain with knowledge, because I thought knowledge would make me more confident. And also, by the way, I did think that it would make me more valuable as a coach, which it did to some extent, no doubt. But I was also doing it for confidence. So that's definitely, for me, knowledge to some extent is probably, I think about that like confidence. But a lot of coaches do. Accomplishment. For some coaches, if they accomplish something, that to them is confidence. So if I climb this next mountain, then I'll be confident. And by the way, some of them, they climb mountain after mountain after mountain, and it's always like the next mountain that's going to really give them the confidence that they deserve, right? And it's like, well, there's always going to be a higher mountain. So it's like, if there is a mountain that's higher than the mountain you're on, and that's why you can't be confident yet, well, you're never going to be confident, because you're never going to find that highest mountain. Because especially in the world of coaching, as I've said before, I'll say it again, coaching in the world of transforming lives It's a mountain that has no top. You're never going to get at the top of that mountain. You might feel like it for a moment, but there's always going to be a higher mountain. Somebody emailed me the other day. I haven't even had a chance to respond to him yet, but I saw his email very briefly. And he said, why should I take your certification training? I've been certified by John Maxwell, and he's certified, 50,000 people, and ICF has only got 29,000. And so, my number's bigger than yours. And so, what's so special about your training, right? And I'm thinking, here's a guy who, and he'd rattled off all the different trainings that he's been through. Here's a guy who's always looking for a higher mountain. That's why he's talking to me. He's sizing my mountain up. It's like, hey, is Sui's mountain bigger than the mountain that I've been on? Because if so, I better climb that mountain, because I can't be confident without that. He wasn't necessarily looking for more knowledge or more achievement, or I don't know, because I haven't had a chance to connect with him yet. But it kind of represents, you can kind of feel the ilk of that. It's kind of okay, where's my next confidence coming from? While he acted so confident in his email, of course, I couldn't hear his tonality. Who knows, right? I'm sure it was, completely. If this is you, if you're the one that emailed me, I'm sure it was completely authentic and sincere that you were really hitting me up for me to answer those questions for you, which I will do as soon as I have a free moment to. Another way that coaches look for confidence is through skills and abilities, right? They want to hit the nail on the head. They just want to have that perfect session. I could appreciate that. It's like a reference point, right? And then finally, and this might look like achievement, but think of this as more like the way that some coaches look for confidence is status. It's not like, the bronze medal achieved, it's just like not quite as much as, the gold medal. And so the gold medal they've got this status that they got, right? So I'm better. I'm above the rest. This sense of superiority, if you will. And so you will actually see, whether it's in our marketplace or many others where it's a very status-driven market, the program or the training or the coach, for instance, they're not really selling their ability. They're not really selling or pitching the experience even so much. They're pitching status. They're pitching that you will have status if you go through our program. And generally those are the most expensive programs, and they're not necessarily the best programs. In fact, I've actually worked with people who've gone through, $10, $20, $30,000 trainings for coaches, for that matter. And they'll come back to me and say, Jeff, that stuff is not even close to as good as yours. Most of the stuff that you actually share and the teachings that you have and the experiences you provide are better than that thing. But they went through that because it gave them status, a different level of status, because it was a prettier website or had a nicer emblem, right? Or the people looked richer, let's say. There's all sorts of different ways that people judge status. So these are the ways that a lot of coaches translate or filter for confidence: certificates or certifications and accolades and degrees, knowledge, achievement, skills and abilities, and then finally status. Those are common. That's kind of the already always existing ways that most coaches actually think about confidence. So let's actually talk about how to get it. How do you actually get confidence now? Because you're not going to necessarily have any more confidence when I give you the certification from this training. You're not necessarily going to have more confidence just because you ran a couple good sessions. There's all sorts of reasons why you might not. So let's get to the core of what will give you not charity confidence, not temporary confidence, but real, sustainable, consistent confidence. So there's one big way. I should get a different color for this. Let's just try plain old black. There's one big way that you get confidence in any moment, right now. And everything else we're going to talk about falls under this one specific distinction. And I really don't have any place to write it, so I'll just write it sideways here. And that is meaning. Whatever meaning you're currently owning in your head, whatever meaning you're creating, is going to either give you confidence or take confidence away. Now, it'll give you and take away other things as well. Meaning is the arbiter of reality in a lot of ways. I mean, if you have a relationship with somebody and you're angry at them, the only reason you're angry is not because of them, it has nothing to do with them. Now, you might say, well, yeah, well, they hit me or they abandoned me or they treated me badly. That's your meaning. I'm sure they probably gave it a different meaning, right? By the way, vice versa, if somebody else is angry at you or they're really, sad about something you did or whatever, it's not because of you. You didn't cause that anger, that sadness, or that feeling of abandonment. It's their meaning. You can't control somebody else's meaning. I can't control the meanings you make. No matter how many certificates I give you, I can't control that meaning. You are the one, and only you're the one that has at least influence over the meanings that you make up and that you create. And for the most part, you have control over that if you're conscious of it. Now you might say, well, wait a second, I'm not the one that decides what things in the world mean. I'm not the one who decides like who I am in terms of like the meaning of how I translate into reality. Other people are in charge of that. The world is in charge of that. Like I'm not in control of that. And the truth is, yes, you are for you. You're not for other people. But no matter what meaning the world creates, or no matter which like doesn't really exist because you can't show me any meaning, it's just whatever you think signifies that meaning, like a symbol or words or something like that is out there in the world, right? People's happy faces or frowning faces or the way people act. That's not the meaning. That's just people writing things and saying things and doing things and acting out a certain way. That's not the meaning, right? The meaning is inside you for you. Okay, so ultimately, whether it's in a relationship or in your business or in how you feel about yourself or how you act in a coaching session or the skills that you transmit through you, it all comes through a state of mind, obviously, but that state of mind creates a meaning for you. And so whatever meaning you make up, that's the meaning of your life. That's the meaning of your business. That's the meaning of you. That's the meaning of whether you're confident as well. It's all meaning. So meaning is what creates confidence. And there is no meaning out here in the world. If you say, well, the world means this, or this is what life is about, or this is the purpose, or this is the meaning, I'll just ask you, show me that. If that's what it means, show me the meaning. Now like I said, all you can show me is people, places, things. You can show me, molecules floating around. You can show me words, but you can't show me meaning. Meaning has zero substance to it. Meaning doesn't matter. It's literally, there is no matter in meaning, right? Now you say, well, the meaning is inside my head. The meaning is inside those people. The meaning is inside my prospects' heads, and that's why they won't sign up for coaching with me. Really? If I cut open your head or your prospect's head or your client's head, would I find meaning? No, I'd find goo, right? I'd basically just have a mess. I would not find any meaning. Okay, now again, we can get into an argument here about the biochemistry of meaning and all that kind of stuff. That's not the purpose of this conversation. But I wanted to clarify that you get to decide what the meaning is, nobody else. Now, they can argue with you. They could decide that, like, you might say, well, I can't be confident because this is what it means. And of course, I'll always lose that argument because no matter what you think it means, that's what it means. No matter what you think, it becomes true in your world, and you'll act that out and becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you'll surround yourself with people that share that meaning because the other people, you can't even talk to them because why bother? Because they don't even believe what you believe, and we go on and on and on and on and on. It's an endless cycle that you just go around and around in a circle, and you'll never land anywhere other than where you already are. And by the way, if where you already are, if your entire past is just great and you just want to repeat that, then you can obviously just continue making the same meanings. You don't have to have this conversation with me. You don't even need any training on this, right? Don't worry about it. Forget about it, as they'd say, right? Forget about it. But if you want to transform something for yourself, if you're looking for that confidence, and this is part of why you're here in this conversation, if you feel like something I just talked about will give you the confidence, again, You're never going to have sustainable confidence from those things. It's only going to come from the meaning that changes. Now, if you get a certificate and you say, that means this, that means I can be confident. Okay, great. But it wasn't the certificate that did it. It was the meaning that you brought that was triggered or that was stimulated by you getting a certificate. That's what happened that night or day when, the master trainer said, you're certified, you're amazing, you're going to work for us. And I thought I was on cloud nine and I was the king of the world, right? Like I just made a meaning out of that in that moment. And then eventually over the days and years to come, I made different meanings. Because I made different meanings, I had lower levels of confidence. All comes from meaning. So how do you actually create meaning? Well, there's a couple different ways. The first way that you can create meaning is the one that you learned very early on in your life, mostly in school and from your parents, which is called language. Language is the most direct kind of form of meaning that most people can easily manipulate. There are more kind of guttural, direct forms of meaning that we'll talk about in a second, but the primary way that we arbitrate and control and communicate meaning is through words. When you say different words, they mean different things, right? I mean, we know that. Now, people say, well, I tried affirmations, they didn't work. Well, probably the affirmations that you utilized, the words that you said, you either said it in a way that made you doubt those things, or you used words that you didn't believe anyway. And so, of course, we can say things that we think are lies, and, the words themselves aren't going to like suddenly become true. It's not magic, right? You have to be able to program yourself with meaning that you can actually buy into. If you won't buy into it, you got to make some changes there that are beyond the words. But the words, although they're a little bit of a surface level piece, they're an avenue through which you can actually create meaning ultimately. And so now if you want to make those meanings stick around, then you can turn them into symbols and write them down or put them on stone tablets, right? Put them on a flip chart, share them with others, record your videos, right? There's things that you can do to have those words stick around, because most of the words, we just say them once and we forget about them. That's what, by the way, happened that night, that I was so confident. I was saying these words to myself with great intensity, with great belief, because of what had happened, supposedly. It was really because I decided that this was the case. And then later on, I said different words to myself. I had a different experience. So language is a part of that. Physical action also is probably the most direct arbiter of meaning that we don't have as much control over, because most people don't have a lot of power in their bodies. They don't use their bodies very often. They kind of sit in front of in an office all day, or they're kind of sleepy. They don't light themselves up by using all the energy that they have within themselves. They don't take a lot of action, or they don't fully engage their physiology in a way that has intensity to it. Because I could just talk to you like this and be, kind of soft and easy, and change my body so it's maybe much less intense. And, you'd probably feel maybe like you're bored out of your mind, but also I would feel less confidence because my intensity is down, my confidence in myself, my energy level is down, and I can't transmit as much through me. And so I won't feel, I'm going to be the first one to notice that I'm not 100% today. And so how could you be confident when you judge yourself like that? And it's probably good reason for it. Somebody once said, kind of as an insult, your lack of confidence is justified. Like your lack of, there's a good reason for your lack of confidence. Most of us have really good reasons for our lack of confidence. One of them being lack of energy physically, lack of action physically, so to speak, lack of actual coaching, doing it, practicing the practices. And so we look at ourselves, of course, because we have this recorder going on all day, watching what we do, watching how we live. And so we're not 100%, or we're not at 100%. We're not acting 100%. We're not taking 100% of the actions that we could take. And we wonder why we're not that confident, because we've judged ourselves for that, probably fairly. You probably have been phoning it in some way, at least as a coach. And so it's like, well, I'm just not confident. I need a certificate. That's what it is. You know what? Maybe you could directly and immediately get confidence through physical action, physical intensity, and then repetition and massive action in the world that would prove to you, at least, if not anybody else, that you actually are walking your talk for once. What would that be like? What would it actually be like to get the tongue in your shoes aligned with the tongue in your mouth? Because I'll tell you, like, it just makes me sick sometimes looking at this industry and all the coaches out there that are they're kind of waving the banner, not horrible, but they're just like, yeah, I'm a great coach. I'm awesome. Everything's great. They got a nice website. Everything's really shiny and happy. And it's like, they don't have anything to back it up with. You know, it's all status, or it's all just attitude, or it's really neither of the two. And they're more wannabe coaches, and they just figure if I have something that signifies that I'm a coach. You want one of these? I mean, I know this looks kind of cool, but it's $100 and a little bit of design work. I mean, this whole thing probably cost me $200 worth of I didn't create any of this. This has nothing to do with me. This is a designer and then some printer. And I think I actually did a little of the design. I did a little bit of DIY, right? But, you know, this is just, it's all symbols. George Carlin once said, all these different things are symbols, and I leave symbols to the symbol-minded. But isn't it true, though? Like, there's so much posing out there and acting for status, especially in the world of coaching. It's like a cult of personality more than it is a cult of reality, something that's based on something that people can truly back up with action, with physics, they can actually stand behind it. Physically with their body, they stand behind it, right? So that's another way to create those meanings is when I create a physiology that has intensity to it, that has confidence to it, and I talk that way also, and I've been acting over the last couple of weeks at least, like I've been playing full out, and actually I've been showing up for my live streams, and I'm not just phoning it in, right? It's like midnight my time, and I haven't had dinner yet, right? I mean, I don't recommend that, but the point is I know myself to be someone at this moment who's giving 100%. And so I have a different level of confidence. Where are you? Are you at 20%? Are you at 80%? Are you at 110%? And by the way, part of that's just follow through. Part of that's intensity level though, as well. And so you have a combination of those two things. You can get confidence real fast doing those couple things. And most people, they're like, make one phone call, do one really quick thing, kind of half-assed, you know, with like barely with a smile on their face, you know, like hyperventilating. And they're like, okay, didn't work. Okay, I give up. It's like, look at what happened. I mean, physically, lack of action, lack of physical action, lack of physical intensity. Where did you think the confidence was going to come from? Oh, yeah, that's right. You were looking for charity. You thought I was going to give you that. You thought the person that you called and tried to sign up for coaching was there. They were there to pat you on the back, to make you feel better about yourself. They were there to give you the confidence that you don't have, so then you can go do it again. So then you can actually make another call. So then you can change another life. And you're supposed to be a coach, and you're supposed to be helping other people. Holy shit. That is a no pass. And if you think for 1 second in this training, in any of our live training sessions, or any of the things, the hoops that you're going to jump through in coach certification, like we talked about the other day in T-1 days, the coach's journey that we talked about. If you haven't watched that, you should watch that. I'll try and link to it if I can find where we are. It's 45 minutes into the video, and we'll tag it, at least on YouTube. You think I'm going to stand up for that and let you get by with that and give you a certificate and just say, happy trails, good luck, you're going to be fine? There is no freaking way in hell I'm going to allow that. Not on my watch. And it shouldn't be on your watch either. That's why I'm having this conversation with you in day one. Because it's in the space, it's in the conversation, and I cannot, I'll puke if I allow it to stay there anymore. Are you getting this? Hit me up in the chat if you are. Does this make any sense to you? Any yeah buts? Anything like Suey's full of shit and he doesn't know what he's talking about? Like he doesn't understand where I'm at? Because I want to know. Okay, so language we talked about. That'll create meaning. Physical action. I think we beat that horse to death. Speaking of this one, it's funny, and it literally came up as like before I got to it. Emotion. Like confidence is just an emotion, right? So you could actually have a feeling of confidence, just an emotion, and we'll literally, in our first training session, if we haven't already had it, we will be working on and talking about key buttons that you can push to actually generate emotion. So confidence is nothing but an emotion. You can feel it at any time because you have control over your emotions. A lot of people don't think they do, but we're going to get into that. I'm not going to belabor that one tonight in this live stream. Focus. What you focus on. You could focus on things that make you feel confident, or you can focus on things that make you feel a lack of confidence, right? That could totally happen as well. So meaning comes from language, physical action or lack thereof, and intensity of action, emotion, and focus. Because I can focus on different things which will create different meanings. And confidence is a meaning. And then finally, and we talked about this big time yesterday, your story. Story and your past and what you've been through and what your future looks like and kind of like the timeline of your life or your coaching business or whatever, that story is one that could give us or take away confidence from us, right? And so we have a narrative or an arc that we live, and some of us are in a story of a romance, and that's a beautiful thing. Some of us are in a story of a tragedy, and that's something that probably won't feel very confident at times. There'll probably be some sadness in that story. Some of us are living a story of, a competition, and then we're probably going to look for status to give us the confidence. Some of us are living a story of a victory. Some of us are living a story of overcoming obstacles. Some of us are living a story of contribution and a gift that we have in our life, the gift that we can give others. Different story, different focus, different story, different focus, different meaning. So those are shortcuts. You don't necessarily need the certificate if you could do some of this. And if you do some of this, you'll be much more powerfully moving in the direction of getting your certificates. Language, physical action, and intensity of action, physical intensity, so to speak, emotion, focus, and story. Those are the avenues through which you can create meaning. By the way, how might you do this for your clients? Like, could you not work with your clients on their story, on their language patterns, on their physical action or physical intensity, on their emotion, on their focus? I mean, a lot of that you could do just like knowing that it exists. I mean, you could walk away from this live stream, from this video, if you're watching this on a replay, get into coaching sessions where that's all you talk about, and everybody's going to be probably, if you do it with any kind of skill whatsoever, like, wow, where did you come up with this stuff? Right? So you could change other people's lives. They may not need confidence, but they're going to need meaning of some other sort. Or maybe they're leaders and managers, and they have to help other people create meaning, right? That's what a leader does in a lot of ways. So you create meaning for yourself, confidence shows up, you have enough confidence, enough meaning in your body, in your life, where you can deliver that meaning or help others transform meaning for themselves, and suddenly you're creating a positive cycle, a domino effect that will change many lives that you will never even meet. My job here as your trainer, as your mentor, as your coach, is to start that conversation today. Start that conversation literally in this dialogue that we're having here. So we're going to get to this in a second, but we had a bunch of chats, so I'm going to check those, and then we'll continue. So, all right, clear cost on your website. Somebody's looking for costs. Yeah, just it looks like you're commenting on YouTube. So here's what I'll do. I'll reply to your comment as soon as I can once we're done with the video, and I'll give you a link that'll give you details. I can promise you that. I'm speaking specifically of the training that is happening right now that we just began like yesterday or today, depending on the day that you're watching this. And then, feel free to ask questions if you have them. I'm happy to answer them. One of the reasons you might not be clear from just going to like a website of ours, we have several of those. And in addition to that, Master Coach University has like 5 or 6 different programs. So kind of depends on which program you're looking at and when we're offering it as well. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to help, especially when it comes to it comes to those kind of questions. Okay, and yeah, so Josie says accountability is very important. Telling stories is a great way to gain attention. Absolutely, because stories are where we create meaning from. They are, like one of my mentors used to say this, they're like maps of meaning. They map out the meaning in a way that somebody can easily understand it because it's in narrative form, right? So, all right, really, really good. Let's keep going. So finally for tonight, ways to transform meaning. So we talked about creating meaning, right, from scratch, but how might you transform meaning? Because if your meaning right now is I can't be confident because I don't have a certificate, or I'm not confident yet because I haven't like changed somebody's life yet, or something like that, you might need to transform your current meaning because you have an already existing meaning, and you can't just like put some meaning in its place necessarily. I mean, you could try, but most of the time, the meanings that we create, the beliefs that we have, they're stubborn, right? I mean, they don't want to budge. They want to stick around. So it's a couple with different ways to transform meaning. And again, part of this is just for you, for today, for confidence purposes. Part of this could be methods through which you actually coach your clients. So like I said a second ago, part of transforming somebody's life is part of causing the breakthroughs that could occur for them through facilitation and coaching and talking to them, etc., is through transformation of meaning. This is the greatest way that I a lot of times help my clients is just through transforming meaning. I'll give you an example, just one quick example. So there's a client of mine that I worked with. He's a business owner, has a business that does, $5 million a year plus. He's been running the business for like 20 years. And he, part of his job was to travel. He had to travel, kind of traveled for a living to run his business. And he'd have to fly from different cities, and the CEO of the company was no longer the owner. The owner had left the CEO position, and the CEO was a new person that did not own the business at the time, or only owned part of the business. And the CEO said, we try to get the founder of this company to travel from place to place so we can make sales and really support the business. And he won't do it. He takes trains. He has to only travel locally because he's afraid to fly. And he's like, so there's nothing we can do about it. I'm like, really? Yeah. So, I mean, I should be able to transform that in maybe like a session or two. And they're like, come on. I mean, this guy's like literally has a flying phobia. He hasn't been on a plane for like 15 years. Like you're not going to get him to fly, right? I'm like, well, we'll see. Because I understood that the only reason he had a fear of flying was not some kind of tick in his head or some kind of biochemical problem, lack of serotonin or something like that. He had a meaning that he had created at some point around flying that created fear for him. So the meaning of flying was fear. That's what it was. So I had a short conversation with him, coaching session. And I said, so, how do you know that, why are you afraid to fly? And he said, well, there's these big metal objects that go up in the air. I mean, how can that even be possible? The physics of it makes no sense to me. And, there's turbulence and maybe there's bad weather. I mean, I'm not flying the plane. I'm not in control. There's nothing I can do about it. And he just starts going on this, like he was spiraling, right? All these different meanings, right? And I said, have you ever ridden off-road before? And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, have you ever taken like a Jeep or an off-road vehicle and kind of gone off-roading, or maybe ridden on like a dirt road that was really bumpy? Have you ever been on a road like that? And he said, yeah, I mean, a couple times. I mean, I remember. I said, what is it like when you're on that kind of road? And he's like, well, it kind of goes up and down, and you're kind of you're going on these different bumps and these different piles of dirt, etc. And so it's kind of rocky, And I asked him, I said, well, are you afraid? He said, well, no, I'm not really afraid. It might not be comfortable, but I'm not afraid. It's just a little uncomfortable. I said, how do you know that you're not going to drop through the ground? And he said, well, because the ground supports me. The ground is solid. It supports me. And it's, I'm just bumping up and down because the various, the ground is not even, right? And I said, well, when you're up there, and because he had told me just a second ago, like he was most afraid when there was turbulence. I mean, he just freaks out, right? And I said, when you're up there and it's not smooth air and it's turbulence, there's still air there. It's just bumpy air, right? It's kind of like waves of air. And so I said, when you're bouncing up and down, you're just bouncing up and down on the air. The air is still there. It's not like the air is going to disappear. The air supports the plane, and that supports you. And I asked him, what would it be like if you just, since you obviously are making up these meanings in your mind, all these, and I asked him, I said, well, what do you think about in your mind when you think about flying? He's like, I think about falling out of the sky. And I imagine this picture of me like split wide open, because, the plane exploded and all this really gory stuff. And I'm like, if I thought about those things, I wouldn't be able to fly either. Right. And so I told him, I was like, since you make up all these meanings and all these stories and all these visualizations that aren't really true, I mean, it's very unlikely to happen. It's safer than like riding a bus. And you also understand that, like when you're bouncing up and down, you're just basically bouncing up and down on the air, and you're basically like just coasting along on the air. Well, why don't you like make up a new meaning? Why don't you just make up a new story? Like, what would be kind of a fun story that you can enjoy and actually kind of enjoy the ride of it? And he's like, well, I don't know. I mean, this is a very creative man. I mean, he literally won a Tony Award for compositions that he had written for like the Anna Karenina musical like 20 years ago, right? Like talking about a creative genius, okay? But he was just a little bit too creative for his own good, right? And so he started making up like, well, I don't know, I could like imagine I'm like Peter Pan and I'm like floating along in the sky. And I was like, well, okay, imagine what it would be like to fly like that. And he kind of closed his eyes and he imagined it and he thought about it and he's kind of laughing and he's in a completely different state of mind because he created a completely different meaning. He had transformed from this crappy meaning that made him phobic to a meaning that actually made the thing that was painful and fearful and that he was terrorized, basically terror, into fun. And a couple weeks later, the CEO of this company called me, or we had some kind of meeting for some reason, and he said, I heard what you did to the owner. I'm like, what? What happened? And he said, the guy called me, he took the plane. After he got off the plane, he said he had so much fun on the flight because he was Peter Pan and he was coasting along in the air and he can't wait for his next flight. And he's ready to travel to, all the way across the country to do business for us now. He's going to make tens of thousands of dollars more. And I just laughed. Wasn't really that complicated. I mean, there were some mechanics to that, no doubt, but all I was working with a very creative gentleman on the meanings that he created so he could actually transform the old meaning and create new meaning. And you could do that with your confidence or anything else for you, and then your job is to pass this along to our fellow humans out there to make a difference for them. So these are the ways that you can do it. And some of these I just talked about and demonstrated in that little story. Change your rules. A lot of people have rules that convey meaning, like if you don't look at me right, you hate my guts. Or if you say no to me, then I'm a loser, right? It's like, well, how far do you think you're going to get in your business if that's the rule that you have? So change your rules. All rules are like if then, if this, then that. Right? So you can have rules that create pain, like I should be sad, I'm an idiot, I can't be confident unless I have had 100 clients and, walked on water for my clients before. It's like, maybe that's not going to happen for a while. Maybe we should change that rule, at least for a little while, until you're, ready to do that, or until you have already done that. So change your rules. Second, change your expectations. It's kind of like a rule. It's like what you expect in life can set you up for success or failure. And if your expectations are like, I'm going to do everything perfect or else, you're not going to get very far and your confidence is going to go through the floor. But if your expectations are, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to do everything I can, and I'm not going to succeed at first, hey, So at least that expectation is not going to steal your confidence. Now, you could obviously have, expectations that are way too low. You could say, well, I don't think I'm capable of much, right? And then so that expectation might take away confidence. So we got to find a good middle ground there, not something that's insane that you know is going to disappoint you, but also not something that's so low that you sandbagged your own expectations of yourself so you don't actually maintain any standards. We got to find some expectations that are going to set you free, but also that you're going to actually have to stick with, like for instance in this training. Change your evidence procedure. Think of this is similar to rules, but like we have evidence procedures that are kind of like what we talked about before. I have to have a certificate. I have to have 10 clients. I have to have this great website. I have to have this really pretty logo. I have to have a cool shirt with this emblem on it. I didn't have any of these things before I was confident, because I created that confidence because I didn't have to have evidence like this around me. Now, it's nice to have this evidence, but I certainly don't need it. There's no doubt in my mind about that because I've lived for years without them. And it's nice to have because sometimes people need this to be confident in us as well, because just acting it out is not enough for them. And we know status or all sorts of other reasons why. So change your evidence procedure. Maybe there's other ways that you could achieve the same things. Maybe there's other things that can provide evidence that you can be confident today. Create references. Now that's probably going to take some action on your part. Go coach, go practice, go get better, go learn something. All kind of things that we talked about before. That can stack references. That's nothing wrong with a reference. Look, a certificate is just a reference, So if that in your work that preceded that certificate can create references for you, fantastic. That's great. Like we could be here for that. But let's not just be dependent on that. Okay, so references are about as close as the confidence charity is where we really want to get. But there's some great references you can build for yourself that you have control over. You're not dependent on anybody else for. So let's find those. Do the work. I mean, we kind of talked about that when we talked about action. Like, you just get to work. You have work to do. If somebody says I'm scared, or somebody says I failed, or somebody says I'm depressed, I'm like, fine. But if you are going to maintain that and indulge in that consistently, you're just getting yourself out of the work that you have in front of you that you maybe don't want to do so much. So let's get off it. Let's get off our pity pot or whatever you want to call that, that emotional indulgence in negative emotion or lack of confidence, and get to work. You get to work, confidence is going to show up. Then finally, find and emulate a role model. There are probably people that you know that, or coaches that you know, or mentors that you know that you look up to enough to say they're confident. They have some confidence here. What if you just utilize them, focused on them for a while, not forever, not like they're your guru or something, but actually looked at what they did, copied the heck out of it, be a good parrot, and then just kind of do the same thing. It's a great way to generate initial confidence from somebody that already has it. One of my original kind of teachers, Richard Bandler, founder of NLP, he used to say, why be yourself when you can be somebody else? It was kind of a joke, but really what he was meaning is that, hey, we don't have, like, whatever we think we are, that doesn't have to limit us. Is if we just act out being somebody else, we start to feel like that's us. And at least for a temporary basis, we start feeling the things that those people feel, right? You mimic their physiology, their language pattern. We'll talk about that when we get into training here, the mechanics of it, and bam, all of a sudden you're feeling a whole different level of confidence. By the way, if you're just confident in them, whether or not they act confident, and you do what they do, you're probably going to be more confident in yourself because you are going to kind of internalize the confidence that you had externally for them. It's like, I'll do sometimes as a ritual, I'll think about gurus that I really believe in, and I believe in are amazing, that I look up to, and I'll visualize them, and I'll actually imagine them floating towards me, and then actually getting inside my body, basically, like kind of shrinking them down, and like, okay, I own that person. That person is inside of me now, and all their abilities, all their skills, all their confidence, all their emotion is inside of me. And it's kind of a fun little exercise, but it's a way to feel what somebody else might feel that I don't naturally feel. I don't necessarily feel that as easily. So those are some ways to generate meaning, to transform meaning. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, I'll simplify it for you with, I don't think I have this written down. I think it's just written down in my notes. Yeah. So, couple last thoughts. The way to transform meaning is decide. Decide that you're going to make it mean something else. You make a clear decision, a real decision, it'll change for you, and it can change immediately. Communicate, like actually talk about that decision. Share it with others. Get out there and actually take action, but also use your words, use your communication, use your body, use everything that you've got to talk to people in a way that actually not just conveys confidence, but discusses what your basis for this decision is and who you are now. Get it out there and share. Don't be shy. Change your references or perspective. Like you look at yourself or your confidence or any meaning from a different perspective, it'll change the meaning. You know, it's like somebody looks at any war, whoever won or lost, one side will think it's a victory, the other side, you look at the other side's perspective, it's a defeat. What's good for one person is bad for another. Now, obviously, that's a very violent example, but change enough perspectives, you'll find a perspective that will give you the meaning that you want to transform to. Change the time frame. That's just another way of changing perspectives. You look at a longer term or a shorter term time frame or from a different place on your timeline. You might think of where you are on your arc, on your story, from a very different place, and you'll transform meaning as a result of that. When I do these, the work that I do now, I'm doing hundreds of live streams over the last year or so, and more to come. If I just thought about having this conversation, like I'm talking to like 6 people right now, from the moment, I would think, gosh, that's a freaking failure. But I'm thinking about it from 10 years from now. When, hey, remember when I did hundreds of live streams, and remember when that built up a certain amount of value for the marketplace or for the people I wanted to make a difference for, and the relationships that were generated from that? I'm thinking of it from the end of that rainbow, not from the beginning. If I just thought about it from the beginning, I probably would not be too impressed with myself, at least at this point in that area, right? By the way, people that have gone before me that have done way better or they're at a higher level, they've probably had to deal with that kind of meaning at the beginning as well. So everybody has to transform this in some way, shape, or form. Changing the time frame is another great way to do it. And then finally, this is a very simple question to ask. What else could this mean? You're already making a meaning, so ask yourself, what am I making this mean right now? And then what else could it mean? So decide, communicate, change your references or perspective, change your time frame, and then finally ask, what else could this mean? Those elements will transform meaning for you. You can utilize that in your coaching sessions, transform them for your clients as well. And ultimately, that confidence that you're looking for will not come from knowledge or skills or status or money or accolades or acknowledgments or even certificates. It's going to come from the meaning that you create consistently within your body and within your story. And you have most of the keys to transform that now. Now, again, I'm overviewing this, so I'm not going to give you every technique just in this one live stream. But I hope that it encapsulates for you the journey that you're truly on, that it's not just a matter of just obtaining something. Because, I can send you the certificate right now, and it wouldn't mean anything. And I think you would know that. Some people will take an online course, they'll watch some of my videos, and they'll say, hey, where's my certificate? Like, that's going to make a difference. But to them, that means something, right? So you decide what things mean. You're in control or the arbiter of your meaning over time, and you have massive influence over it. And then for meanings for your clients, these are the ways that you can sometimes transform that depending on the coaching conversation that you have. Any questions about this? Hit me up in the chat. Let me know, and I will talk to you in day 2 of Coach Certification Training, week 1. Take care until then.